SBC Media.
Welcome to the iGaming Daily Podcast, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market.
Signs of clarity come to the UK gambling space as both the Gambling Commission and Betting and Gaming Council offer a clearer insight into how affordability checks will be applied. Announced this morning, the BGC and UKGC in tandem unveiled the establishment of a new voluntary code on customer checks, which is said to minimise friction of financial checks and improve consistencies in Know Your Customer duties. In addition, the UKGC also looks set to implement some quote-unquote light touches affordability checks with the intention of boosting safety and choice for consumers. This will be the topic of today's episode of iGaming Daily, supported by Optimove. With me, your host James Ross. I am joined by SBC News Content Director Ted Menmuir and CasinoBeats Editor Joe Streeter. It's been a while since I last hosted an episode, and I'm returning on an emergency podcast because we've had some big news today. But how have you both been on your ends? Been good, Ted?
Yeah, great. Good to have you on this emergency. the roof is on fire for UK gambling, and James, you gotta put it out.
Oh, I'll do my best. Joe, you good?
Yeah, I'm all good. Thanks, James. And it would be remiss of me if I didn't congratulate you as well. For those that don't know, you were away tying the knot. So congratulations, my friend.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've been away for like a week and a half because I got married. Long overdue actually, to be honest. Well, that's what everyone says anyway. So, no, yeah, I took the big leap, got married. It's done now. So house bought, child had, wedding done. All the big markers are done now. I'm back now. I don't have anything else to look forward to in life. Well, what was it? This podcast, obviously. Well, before we jump into the topic, though, we've already talked about my wedding, which is the big news of the day. But I think it's a good time to highlight the support of the iGaming Daily podcast. I already mentioned them briefly in the introduction, but that is Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. I recently had a discussion with Pinny Yakul, the CEO of Optimove, about their positionless marketer, which is said to provide companies with a competitive edge, improve efficiency and reduce information loss, and a professional who can excel in various roles and tasks. Those interested in hearing more about the positionless marketer, check out the recent CRM-focused iGaming Daily episode with myself and Pinny. It was incredibly insightful, even though I spent most of the time Googling basketball terms, which is where this kind of thing was inspired from. So check out that episode, and as a special offer, Optimove are still offering new clients a free first month when they buy Optimove. For more information and to claim the free month, go to optimove.com/SBC. I'll also leave links in the episode description. Cool. So, Ted, we're going to start with you. What does this morning's announcement by the UKGC confirm for UK stakeholders?
So, lots to cover this morning, but the Gambling Commission essentially confirmed its schedule and timelines in which it will test the proposals and recommendations on key criteria related to the Gambling Review's white paper. Put simply, in essence, the Commission put forward its technical framework to test recommended proposals related to financial risk checks, online game designs, terms and conditions related to direct marketing, and strengthening age verification within land-based venues. So that was the announcement and consultations this morning. However, as you noted in your intro, the pilot on financial risk checks have been prioritised as it's recognised as the kind of key area of conflict for multiple stakeholders, in which the Commission has pledged to maintain unintrusive light checks for customers. So what we're now getting is a kind of a clearer picture of how affordability checks will be tested, will be rolled out, and will be applied. It's really now in the Commission's hands.
Mm-hmm. And Joe, is the Commission implementing a live pilot on affordability checks starting at £150?
So it does start at £150, but the live pilot won't affect consumers or players, whatever you want to describe them as. And I think hearing from the UKGC this morning, one of the things that was really key from them was that this consultation period we've just had, while some consultation periods are seen as token and are just there to tick a box, they really wanted to underline that this consultation period was meaningful and had an impact on the moves that we have seen today. And they've invited it will be, as part of the pilot, it will be some of the biggest operators, the biggest UK stakeholders, so they can guarantee they get the strongest pool, the strongest test off the back of the pilot to kind of make sure everything works correctly. And, I wanted to ask Ted, actually, because we kind of knew this was coming in some form, do you think today's announcement will have caught UK stakeholders by surprise, or will they be ready to go with this? Will they be, ready to sort of implement these changes?
Good question. You kind of throw me a curveball there, man. Is that a possible analogy? No. Look, I think the pilot should be viewed by stakeholders as the Gambling Commission checking the technical remit of what is applicable to maintain what is desired, which is unintrusive checks, right? But that is a very, very broad objective to achieve. And essentially, I think the way that it is rolling out kind of this pilot, it's really there to check whether it has a technical framework, right? Or the technical prowess can be applied, from just running checks to an actual live environment. And again, I think that this pilot and the 6 months that it's going to undertake, you might see numerous revisions in what is applied and how customers are checked.
Yeah. So in order to do that, they've said they're going to kind of use data that is already available to the public. It's not going to. It's not going to require businesses to focus on details such as postcode or job title, but it's going to be through data that is already available to the public. So I guess that's how it's going to be seamless. But putting that into practice is going to be the interesting factor here over the next 6 months, as you say, Ted, or the 6 months from August.
100%. And look, I think the UKGC need to be kind of applauded here because of the first, I think, global regulator that is trying to kind of apply a more technically based way to verify customers and to actually have a gauge on the problem of financial vulnerability, which is the biggest kind of dark area in gambling across all markets.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, actually. And I know you have some fantastic discussions on here about various European markets and even further afield, but specifically the European markets. I have no doubt will be casting a keen eye on the UK market today and over this period to see how things work out here and to see how these plans are put into practice, to see what they can take from them. I think, the lessons will be learned across Europe from this period.
Yeah, while Joe takes over my hosting duties, I'm going to direct a quick question to you, Joe. But before I do, Ted's going to turn his phone on silent. So stop getting notifications.
Apologies. It's Slack. It's my eternal enemy.
It's the UKGC messaging every time. Keep it down.
Yeah, keep it down, Joe.
Well, Ted puts his phone on mute or his laptop on mute, whichever it was. Joe, there's 4 stages or important stages to kind of acknowledge here. You've already mentioned August this year. Can you just mention the other 3 important stages of this UKGC implementation or pilot?
Yeah, I think this was one of the key things that the Gambling Commission wanted to point out, that in order to kind of ease the transition with the industry and to kind of listening to the feedback from the industry was for this kind of staggered approach to the implementation of the checks. And, we see that because from the 30th of August 2024, they will come into force at £500 a month. And then they will be reduced to £150 a month from the 28th of February 2025. So, yeah, interesting that it's staggered. And, some of the other things which we will speak about, with remote games and direct marketing are also at the start of 2025. So really staggering the implementation of these new regulations in order to to give operators the best transitional period possible.
Mm-hmm. And Ted, does the Commission pilot diverge from its original plan on test affordability checks on UK customers?
Oh, good question. In my opinion, it's a yes and no. Well, I mean, look, yes, in the case that the standard threshold, the basic threshold, has increased from £125 to £150, right? But if we maintain that as kind of the original remit, the £150 check will be carried out over a period of 30 days and 500 within a rolling 365-day period, right? So that's kind of the standard template that they will attach. However, I had to kind of review and over kind of old notes that there was no mention by the UKGC about how we'll apply the checks to the higher deposit threshold of losses greater than £1,000 within 24 hours and £2,000 within 90 days. And that's the critical area of concern for UK racing regarding what they regard as their kind of customer base being impacted by changes. Do I think that the thresholds might be revised in the future? I don't know. I think the UKGC are going to stick to the technical remit just because they need to know whether it is technically approachable, whether it's technically feasible to implement them at such low thresholds.
Mm-hmm. And should the industry kind of assume that affordability checks will be set at the UKGC's threshold then?
Again, only time will tell. This is a debate that's going to continue to ramble on until we get kind of a conclusive picture of what the UKGC is willing to implement into law in terms of deposit thresholds. Again, I think there's a lot of pressure for them to change to take it to an upper tier, maybe to make it referential to a specific gaming criteria, and to kind of implement a focus on the kind of other areas that they think are kind of more high risk, such as online casino, maybe a specific threshold for gaming segments. So I think on the pilot might be kind of slightly diverged from what it is at the moment.
Mm. And you mentioned gaming segment there. It's a kind of nice little perfect segue back to Joe. Can you just talk us through about the changes involving iGaming?
Yeah. So again, much to the theme. It's kind of what we anticipated and what we already have, but it's very much the harmonization across an iGaming portfolio for an operator, bringing other things into line, other games into line with current slots regulations. For instance, no audio or visual celebrations when a return is less than or equal to the stake. That will now be across games. We'll see casino games spin speeds of less than 5 seconds. There's different things. No slam stops as well. I think these are just to try and dilute the intensity of some of these games and to very much bring harmonize the rest of an iGaming portfolio with the slots games and slots regulations. And those changes are from the 17th of January, of course, as well.
Mm-hmm. And confirmation of changes to marketing regulations. What impacts will these have? And Joe, this is for you, mate.
I think, it's not major, right? But I think the one thing it will affect, with opt-ins and stuff like that, I think the one element it could affect is, and Ted, please correct me if you disagree here, or I think it could affect conversion during big events. I mean, we have the Euros coming up. We've just had the Grand National. It might provide an extra challenge for operators when they're looking to convert their customers or players they get during the Grand National or during the Euros into casino players or into into other areas of the platform. I think that's where it could provide a challenge, an extra layer of difficulty because of the new regulations with opting in to marketing.
Challenging, Ted. Challenging.
Yeah, look, I mean, one of the things about today's announcement is that, look, we're moving on to kind of the technical aspects of how gambling will be governed. But I think that the industry has to kind of step back at one point and put its case that you need some consumer trust. And they also have to kind of look at kind of consumer infringement of, does gaming just become too technical, or are there kind of too many barriers for the consumer to go and engage with gambling? And does that become a risk in itself, right? Because it's the same as we've seen it in kind of other nations, right? And not necessarily for gaming policy, but for alcohol or tobacco, or kind of other kind of adult sectors where you got so many laws kind of infringing on the consumer that they just go, well, forget it, man. I'm going to go and take the unlicensed route. So again, I think there's a high focus on the technical remit of the gambling review, but ultimately, shouldn't we be looking at the kind of overall consumer reaction to how they respond to changes?
Yeah. It's a good point that you make, Ted. And, you almost feel cliche saying it, but, if these are too tight, we are going to draw more consumers to the black market. And you do feel like you're edging that way. And it's a dangerous game that's being played for sure.
Convenience does have a big value, huh?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Ted, how is the BGC helping the UKGC with its pilot and timeline?
So coinciding with today's announcement, the Betting and Gaming Council, BGC, it has implemented an interim voluntary code for its members, in which it has asked for required actions on customer accounts that exceed net deposits of £5,000 on a rolling month basis and £25,000 within a 12-month period. And it just says that members must ensure at a minimum level that they undertake a risk assessment of a one-to-one interaction with the customer via phone call or via live chat, assess whether the customer has any indication of harm, and also to request personal documents related to their annual income and wealth. BGC also kind of maintains that, its long-term commitment to protecting consumers under the age of 24, and says that they should and recommends that members start to implement checks for the threshold of deposits under £2,500 on a rolling month basis.
Mm-hmm. And this code is voluntary. Does this mean some operators who operate at a lower threshold remain where they are, or will they be forced to move into the higher thresholds?
I think this will be down to the operators. What we know is, look, across the board, it's been a year of compliance changes and KYC changes at that. So if you're talking about the big PLCs, they've already implemented the majority of checks, even at a lower level than the BGC has recommended. Also, talking about compliance across the board, they're doing much more kind of one-on-one checks and screening of customers. We see this with new technologies on verification, technologies that can kind of detect early harms. So again, all the changes that are being proposed are being implemented in some form or the other by the operators as a kind of license fulfillment.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And final one, just to round off the podcast, both years, can we make any assumptions that changes will be implemented by the end of the year?
Okay. Can we make any assumptions on UK gambling? Look, we've been kind of covering the UK gambling reviews kind of development for the past 4 years, and what you know is that you really, it's a fool's game to make any assumptions on UK gambling, and I think it's good that we've got kind of the technical remit and the framework of how changes which are desired to be applied. That is bringing clarity to the sector, right? But what the UK Gambling Commission is pitching, what it's proposing, has never been done before. And I wish them luck. And the proof will be ultimately in what it wants. It wants unintrusive checks, and that is down to how the consumers view this, right? As much as the gambling operators would like to have an input, I think that will be what determines the success of the gambling review, and whether it has fulfilled kind of a mandate that it would not be intrusive on towards the customer. In terms of your question, I think everything's up for grabs at the moment.
Yeah, I kind of echo that the market is quite unpredictable, but praise the UKGC for providing some clarity today, and I kind of lean with their timeline. I think a lot will lie in this kind of 6-month period. I think the right operators will be on board to try it out and to really get an accurate test of whether this can work. There might be some compliance issues. No, leave that. And whether this can work, but I think, it's going to be a big close of the year for the industry.
Perfect. And this has been a breaking story today. There's bound to be kind of follow-on stories from this in the next few days, and like Joe said, even in the next 6 months. So for the listeners out there, keep an eye on SBC News and CasinoBeats, where Joe and Ted will be covering this as and when it does break. And keep an ear out on iGaming Daily, because we'll probably be doing another podcast about this relatively soon. But anything we've talked about today, I will leave links to articles in the description below. And just before we do sign off, I was off last week, so I don't know if it was mentioned, but on the 24th of April was iGaming Daily's 1-year anniversary. So we've been doing this for a year, and it's actually gone super quick. Joe, do you remember the first time and Ted, do you remember the first time we actually did podcasts and how we felt doing it?
I mean, the internal paranoia you gave me. How I sound when I look on camera. Thank you, James.
You're welcome. Well, you've not had to worry about how you look on camera because we're audio only, but who knows in the future, maybe your face will be appearing on YouTube and LinkedIn alike. But no, it's been a good year. It's been a fast year, good year. It's gone too quick. And we are over 250 episodes in, which is mind-boggling to think. But I thought, I was off last week. I thought I'd raise it. But apart from that, listeners, thank you for sticking with us for the first year. And please stick with us for the next 10 years, obviously. And keep an ear out as well for the next episode of iGaming Daily, which will be tomorrow. Apart from that, thank you and goodbye.
Thank you for listening to today's iGaming Daily podcast, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News network or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.